Hello and welcome to the channel today. I am William Gwyn and I'm going to be talking about a huge TBR video. So these are, I think, 50 books. Yes, 50 books that I intend to read in 2023 and just in the imminent future. These are the 50 on the top of my list. I'm a stats person. I love making lists. I often don't keep to them, but these are the ones that I've put in my top 50 for the next books to read. And so let's get straight on into it. First up, I'm going to carry on with A Song of Ice and Fire, A Feast for Crows. I never read any of the books or watched the series until last year, where I read the first 3 books. I also read Of Fire and Blood, and I watched season 1. And then in the last few weeks, I've binge-watched season 2 and 3 and loved it, and it's reawakened my desire to carry on with the series. I absolutely loved the first 3 books and of Fire and Blood, but I thought I'd give myself a little break, but it's time to return. And I've heard A Feast for Crows is quite interesting in the sense that when people first read it, they think, oh, it's a bit of a step down from A Storm of Swords because of how fast-paced and all the revelations in that. But then on a reread, they think it's the best thematically and in the tension building up to the revelations and the payoffs later. So it's very interesting. There's 2 very different takes depending on it's a first-time read or a reread. And maybe with that foresight, maybe I'll fall more into the latter camp, knowing that this is going to be a bit of a slower one without going in with those high expectations of the fast pace of A Storm of Swords. So yeah, maybe we will definitely see, but I'm most definitely looking forward to reading A Feast for Crows. And then next up I have some historical fiction. That is Shogun by James Clavell. This is a very renowned historical fiction book that my Papa Gwyn, my brother Ed, and so many others that I trust have said that they adore. They've said it's one of the greatest historical fiction books of all time, and so of course I have to read it. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. Of course, Shogun, by the name you can tell it's going to be set in Japan, and I've heard that this is especially brilliant regarding the characters, the character work, the relationships, the political machinations, not machinations, the political machinations. And so yeah, of course I'm really looking forward to reading it. And then returning back to some fantasy, I'm going to be carrying on with the Poppy War trilogy. I will be reading book 2, The Dragon Republic, and book 3, The Burning God by Rebecca F. Kuang. So the Poppy War, I was a bit conflicted. I loved aspects of it and other aspects jarred. I thought it didn't feel very realistic, and that's where it brought the story down a bit. But there's more than enough to absolutely make me carry on with this series, because I really respected the storytelling and Rebecca F. Kuang's art as a writer. So definitely yes, powering on with the series, especially as I loved Babel, or Babel, however you say it. I thought that was a brilliant book, and so yeah, of course Rebecca F. Kuang is a great writer, and so yeah, I'm looking forward to carrying on with this series, and hopefully it will take what was great about book 1 and elevate it, and then maybe make it feel a bit more realistic to me. And then next up I have 3 books in another series, and this is the War Eternal series by Rob J. Hayes. I was about to say the series name again, then I had to stop myself. So I've read the first 2 books, Along the Razor's Edge and The Lessons Never Learned, and I thought they're both thoroughly enjoyable. This is self-published, and I love how it's fantasy, but it takes it in such a different direction. My predictions, often I'm not great at the intricacies of a plot. Like I won't guess them. I find them really entertaining, but I won't guess correctly. But you can often tell the general direction the story is going to take, aren't you? And often when it doesn't go there, it's a bit too experimental, and then it just falls a bit flat because we thought, oh, I was looking forward to that showdown or that confrontation. But this does it in a way where it's shocking and surprises you, takes you in different directions, but in a way that is satisfying, and the payoff is there. So of course I'm really looking forward to carrying on with this series, and there's 3 books to get through for that. And so yeah, now I will be reading all 3 of those, because I think Rob J. Hayes is a great writer. Love Never Die, and I thought the first 2 installments in the War Eternal were brilliant. And then I'm going to be reading Yellow Sky Revolt because of the recommendation by the Library of Alexandria. And so this is, so I'm a huge fan, and as a child I played the game Dynasty Warriors. It's a huge part of my childhood, and the first stage of that game is always sorry, I should step back a section. So that game is inspired and based on the Romance of the 3 Kingdoms, which is a period in Chinese history where they're basically 3 kingdoms. It's a bit more complicated than that, but 3 kingdoms who were warring with each other at kind of the fall of the Han Dynasty and trying to forge a new empire, basically, a new leadership. And this game is based on that, and so it's not authentic. The Romance of the Three Kingdoms was not authentic to the historical detail. But the Yellow Sky Revolt takes what is often seen as one of the first phases of that war and what was to follow. And so I'm really looking forward to reading this historical fiction. And the Library of Alexandria, he said he also loved Dynasty Warriors, and he said this was great. So going off his recommendation, I'm thoroughly looking forward to reading this. And then returning to some fantasy, I'm going to be reading the Farseid trilogy and the Live Ship Traders, and hopefully the Tourneyman trilogy all this year. And then I am going to do a complete reread of all of these books. But today we'll focus on these 6 because I absolutely love this first trilogy of the series. I think it's incredible. I think book 3 is probably the weakest out of all the books that I read because there are some aspects that fell a bit flat. But I committed sacrilege and I skipped the other series, this Live Ship Traders series, because it didn't have the same cast of characters. So I just skipped straight to the Tourneyman, which is sacrilege, and every Robin Hobbs fan will agree with that I committed a complete and utterly despicable crime, basically. And so I'm returning to rectify those mistakes, and I'm really looking forward to getting into Live Ship Traders, and of course rereading one of my favourite series of all time. And then I will be reading some more westerns this year, and I'm really looking forward to reading True Grit. And so of course it's high on my TBR. I love the films, both the original of John Wayne and the more recent one that's got Matt Damon and Jeff Bridges, and I forgot the actress of the main character. She's absolutely incredible in this role. And yes, I love the film, so I'm really looking forward to reading the book. Papa Gwyn and Brother Ed my brother Ed absolutely love this book, and so yeah, I'm looking forward to joining the bandwagon. Most likely I will be anyway. And then next up, what do I have? I have the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which I talked about earlier, the Yellow Sky Revolt. So yes, I'm on a bit of kind of a historical binge of I want to learn more about the actual history of the Three Kingdoms. And so the Romance of the Three Kingdoms is known as a very integral text to kind of the Chinese literature text, and it's about a period of Chinese history, and as I said, it's about the fall of kind of the Han dynasty, and of course I want to read it, and I'm going to go back to Dynasty Warriors. I loved that game, and so yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading this and seeing where kind of those inspirations and depictions of characters, where they're the same and where they differed from the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, because I'm also doing a bit more looking more into the historical details as well, so it'd be also very interesting to compare the historical reality as far as we can tell compared to how it was kind of altered in this book. And so yeah, really looking forward to getting to the Romance of the Three Kingdoms as well. And then next up I have Dracula, of course, by Bram Stoker. I have never read this. I know that it's in the epistolary form. I know aspects of this book, what happens, but I'm really looking forward to finally reading it. It's a favourite of Papa Gwyn's. He's read it so many times since he was a child, and I've never actually watched the film. I think I watched the beginning of it, but I never finished it. And I cannot wait to read this. Dracula, it's a classic, isn't it? And I do love some gothic tales and some gothic fiction. It's probably one of my favourite kind of genres away from fantasy, or as a subgenre as well. And so, of course, really looking forward to reading Dracula by Bram Stoker. And next up, I'm going to also be talking about the Cradle series by Will White. I've read and really enjoyed the first 2 installments in this series, and today I'll be talking about the next 3, so book 3, 4 and 5, which are Black Flame, Sky Sworn and Ghost Water, which they're in that order, so book 3 is Black Flame and so on and so on. And so yeah, apparently it really kicks off in book 3. I was told, oh, if you don't enjoy the first 2 books, just wait it out and read book 3, and that's where it kicks off. And I really enjoyed the first 2 books, so what's in store for me, I think it would be brilliant, because they say it just gets better and better, and in that case, I think that I'm going to have a phenomenal journey with this series, Cradle, written by Will White. And as I said, I'm really looking forward to carrying on, because I've thoroughly enjoyed the first 2 installments. And then next up, I have The Faithful and the Fallen. I'll be doing a reread, and this is book 1, obviously, Malice, by Papa John Gwyn. I mean, he's not called Papa John Gwyn by everyone, but I'm lucky enough to. And yes, I'm really looking forward to doing a reread of the series. 2022 was the first year I've not reread The Faithful and the Fallen, so that is absolute sacrilege, especially in this Gwyn household. And so, of course, I have to be rereading this series, and it's so integral to me on so many levels. I love it as a book, but the sentimentality as well, and these characters, we would talk about them over the dinner table, so they feel so real, and so that makes the time you spend with them so much more powerful, but also far more emotional when they are stripped away from you, as Papa Gwyn is not afraid to do. And so yeah, really looking forward to rereading The Faithful and the Fallen. And then I recently put a review of The Passenger by Cormac McCarthy on the channel, and I'm going to be reading the twin accompanying novel, which is called Stella Maris, which in The Passenger there's two perspectives of a brother and the sister, and Stella Maris is a lot smaller. I think it's only about 100, 200 pages, and this follows more with the sister, because Bobby Weston, the brother, is more of the predominant perspective in The Passenger. And so, as I said, Stella Maris is following more with his sister, and I believe it dates to before when The Passenger takes place. And so I'm really looking forward to reading this. Cormac McCarthy is a favourite author of mine. I loved kind of the direction he took with The Passenger, which it felt a bit more intimate and introspective and had a bit more heart than his books usually do. There was actually some hope in some ways. I mean, that's stripped from you in many others, but it felt a bit more human, and it wasn't just a whole book of despair. There's plenty of despair to go around, but there were other aspects as well. And so yeah, I really enjoyed The Passenger, and I'm looking forward to reading Stella Maris. And then what do I have next? Another reread, and this is going to be the Warlord Chronicles. Book 1, The Winter King. Book 2, Enemy of God. And Book 3, Excalibur. I absolutely loved how last year a lot of the booktubers were kind of getting a bit more into historical fiction, and in particular reading the Warlord Chronicles. And I love the Arthurian legend, I love Bernard Cornwell's writing, and I love historical fiction. When all three are put together, it creates one of my favourite trilogies and series of all time. So we follow the lesser known Arthurian figure of Derval. So he is an Arthurian figure, but he was taken out in a lot of the more contemporary tellings of the legend. And so Bernard Cornwell reinstalls him and makes him the sole perspective of these books. And so we really see the Arthurian legend and the rise and fall of Arthur from a very different perspective, and I absolutely love that. This is a book that it retains what we love about the Arthurian legend, kind of the links between heroism and tragedy and how they're intertwined. The core themes of friendship and sacrifice and betrayal, and these kind of groups of warriors as well, and fighting for what is good. But it also feels very real. So Bernard Cornwell does give us those themes, but this is not a chivalric book full of just all heroism and happiness. No, there's plenty of tragedy, plenty of betrayals. It's political in many ways, and it feels far more real than probably any other representation of the Arthurian legend that I have read. And it's brilliant, and I'm looking forward to rereading it. And then next up I have Guards by Terry Pratchett. I read Mort last year and absolutely loved it. It's the first book of Discworld that I've ever read, and I've heard Guards is most people's favourite of the series. Please do let me know if I'm wrong in that, because obviously I don't know much about the series. I've only read book 1. But yeah, let me know what your favourite book of Discworld is. I've heard that Guards is the most widely popular, and I cannot wait to read it more. I loved how Terry Pratchett uses humour to kind of fuel different thought-provoking elements and tracks that he takes as well. It's not just to make us laugh or be amusing. It really helps the story be entertaining, engaging and memorable, but it also ekes out kind of what drives these characters. Why do they tell these jokes to get away? What is driving them, and as I said, their motivations and the different perspectives, and the commentary on very key ideas such as death, which in Mort is very prevalent, because Mort is a boy who's made an apprentice of the literal figure of death, so maybe that won't be as present in Guards, but I'm sure there'll be more genius in here. And so yeah, of course, really looking forward to reading this, and I'm going to be reading a few more comics hopefully. And so I'm going to read The Killing Joke, which is known as kind of maybe the greatest comic featuring Batman and of course his nemesis, the Joker. And The Killing Joke, it's kind of there. It's a great name. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading this. I'm going to pillage Papa Gwyn's copy that he's got in his room, but we won't tell him that. Borrow, not pillage. I'll borrow it. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading it, getting a bit more into comics. I read a few in 2022, but then just stopped for some reason. But recently, my friend Max kindly bought me Volume 1 of The Sandman. And so I will definitely be reading this very soon. And so going a bit more of a comic splurge. So I'll begin with this, then The Killing Joke, and then we'll see where it goes from there. Maybe I'll get into some manga, but who knows. I won't put it on this list because it's not definite. But hopefully I'll be getting to Sandman very soon. And The Killing Joke, as I was just talking about. And then what do I have next up? That is the question. I have The Judas Blossom by Stephen Orion. So I've been very lucky and honoured to receive an early copy. So this is being published in June or July. But I will be reading it in the latter half of February. I am really looking forward to this. It's historical fantasy, and that's right up my street, and I've heard great things about Stephen Orion's writing. I've never got to reading The Coward. I've been meaning to pick it up for so long, but finally I've been making the dive into his writing with The Judas Blossom, and we did an announcement on the Brothers Gwyn, so if you want to hear the premise and all of that good stuff, do head over to that video. I'll link it somewhere around where I am if I remember, but hopefully I do. And so yeah, that is The Judas Blossom. Really looking forward to reading that. And then next up I have the Cicero trilogy, Imperium, Lustrum and Dictator. So the Library of Alexandria, he is doing a read-along on his channel. I'm a bit behind, but I'm reading Imperium now, and hopefully I can blast through that and then the sequel as well to catch up. I am 60-70% of the way through Imperium, and I'm really enjoying it. I love the political machinations, but done in a way that feels very fast-paced and engaging, and I love kind of how the tension builds and the revelations, where we're showing a very close perspective to the historical figure of Cicero, and we're kind of seeing his rise in Imperium. And so yeah, really enjoying it, and I cannot wait to see where this series goes. And talking about another series, I'll be reading the Boudica Quartet. I read book 1 already, Dreaming the Eagle. It was one of, if not my favourite read of 2022, and I cannot wait to read the next 3 books in the quartet. And I know my heart's going to be broken, but I have to carry on. It's one of those that you absolutely love the characters so much, but you can just see the tragedy and the dread coming closer and closer and closer, but you just can't take your eyes away from the page. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to carrying on with the series. And then another series I'll be talking about, which I don't have physically on me, is the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading these. It's known, it's been titled as kind of the Asian-inspired fantasy, which is similar to The Godfather in many ways, kind of those mafia-type story with family ties at the core. I'm in. The Godfather is probably, alongside The Lord of the Rings, Dead Poets Society, my favourite films of all time, but film 1 and 2, of course. I mean, I don't think there was a third. We won't talk about that. Yeah, I absolutely love the first and second films, and it's just incredible. And so anything that has The Godfather labelled on it, I am there. And then next up, I have The House with the Golden Door by Elodie Harper. This is book 2 of the Wolf Den trilogy. Absolutely loved book 1. I did a review of the Wolf Den on the channel, and this is the sequel, which my brother Ed said is even better and was his second favourite read of 2023. So of course, really looking forward to being back with this really varied and vivid cast of characters. And so next up, I am really looking forward to reading The Battle of Morden. So Tolkien's translation is being published in 2023. And so The Battle of Morden, I've read translations before in a book of the Anglo-Saxon verse, and I'm really looking forward to seeing Tolkien's take on it. So, of course, really looking forward to it. Anything by Tolkien, not just Middle-earth, I love to get to. And then next up, I have The Exile by Ryan Cahill. So I've read book 1 and 2 of The Bone of the Broken, as well as the first novella of the series, and I'm really looking forward to reading The Exile before I get to Of War and Ruin. And I've heard that this really adds so much to the story that's happened so far. It's not 100% necessary to read it, but it's highly recommended. And so yeah, really looking forward to getting to this. And Ryan Cahill is quickly establishing himself as such an efficient and consistent writer who you can just depend on for a great story. And so yeah, that is The Exile. And next up, I have The Warlord by Bernard Cornwell. This is the final instalment of the Saxon stories. The film of The Last Kingdom is coming out soon, and so they did 5 seasons, I believe. I've only watched 4. I need to watch the 5th. And then they're having one book to wrap it all, one film, sorry, to wrap it all up. And Warlord is the final book in the series. And yeah, I've really enjoyed the journey so far. It'll be bittersweet leaving Uhtred, but this will be his final journey, his final outing. And I've heard that it's a fabulous conclusion for him. And then I have The Death of Ivan Illich by Leo Tolstoy. I watched a film a few months ago called Living, which features Bill Nye, and it is one of the greatest films I've ever watched. It is so powerful on kind of forging purpose for ourselves and how society kind of shapes us to do certain things, prioritise a job, this and that, but what is actually important in life. And so it's very different from what I usually read. And so Living was inspired by the film Ikaru by Akira Kurosawa, and that was inspired by The Death of Ivan Illich, a novella, a short story by Leo Tolstoy. So of course I have to read the root material. Next up, I have Orphea and Eurydice. I probably just butchered the pronunciation there, by Elise John, which is being released in 2023. So she is the writer of The Counselor, which I absolutely loved, and it's actually the first book I reviewed with my brother on the Brothers Gwyn. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting into this. This is a Greek retelling, Greek mythological retelling, and I love some of those. And so her writing was really beautiful and intricate and smooth and rewarding in The Counselor, and I'm very excited to see more of the same in this Greek retelling. Talking about Greek retellings, I'm really looking forward to reading Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. So Jennifer Saint has been labelled as one of the recent authors who's been highlighting the women who have often been pushed to the periphery of the Greek retellings and mythologies, even though they play such integral roles. And so there's a few of them that I've read recently that I've absolutely adored. Well, recent, I mean the last few years. So The Silence of the Gales, The Women of Troy, two of my favourite books of all time. I also really enjoyed A Thousand Ships by Natalie Haynes. And so Ariadne, also really looking forward to reading this. And then I have How Conflict Shaped Us by Margaret Macmillan, and this is basically non-fiction that takes us through the millennium, multiple millennium, and looking at how conflict has shaped society, technology, evolution, and how it's held us back as well. And so I'm really looking forward to reading this. It's meant to be very insightful and powerful, and very engaging as well, and thought-provoking. So of course, really looking forward to getting into this, and some non-fiction on the list. And then the last book I'm talking about today is The Drowned Kingdom, some self-published fantasy by P.L. Stewart. And so I cannot wait to get to this. Book 3 will be released at some point soon of his series. And it's been one that's been on my list for so long now, and I'm finally going to get to it soon. The Drowned Kingdom. What a name, first of all, and the premise sounds brilliant as well, so I'm really looking forward to getting to this, and my brother Ed will as well, so I'm sure that I'll be talking about it a lot on this channel, and that we'll both be talking about it on the Brothers Gwyn as well. So there we go, they are 50 books I have on my TBR pile, and so yeah, my voice has partly gone talking about so many books, but thank you everyone so much for watching this video. Let me know what's high up on your TBR, and as I said, thank you for watching.